How's it going, guys? Hope you're having a great day. This is Art of Zod with a Lion Cub speed paint video with commentary. Now this short video is just going to cover the brief aspects of how I did the study piece from start to finish. It may not cover everything, but if you have any questions, as always, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you on that. But without further ado, let's get started. So before I begin, I create a frame. And the point of the frame is to ensure the composition and proportion of the study. Without the frame, things can get skewed or distorted easily because we don't know where the picture starts and where the picture finishes. So it's always good practice to start with a frame. So now I've started the sketch stage. I tend to draw in the background this time, just to quickly line it up against the frame, so this way I can define where the Lion Cub begins, and this is what I mentioned about the composition and proportion element. So I tend to keep things relatively simple here, doing straight lines, comparing angles, resizing things if they're not correct. Always take your time when doing sketches like this. Never rush it. Always check if things line up. If not, make every effort to try and make it possible to get the sketch right. When you're satisfied, then you can soften the lines out a bit. So now I'm moving on to the blocking stage. So the first thing is to get the background down, because the background colors affect the foreground, which is the lion. So it's always good to get this done first. Keep it simple. Keep the background simple because it's not the area of focus, but do spend time as much as you can just getting it as close as possible. So I'm just eyeballing the colors down. I'll be coming back to the background later, but this is just to get an idea down. So now I've moved on to the Lion Cub itself. I sometimes flip the canvas there just to reset my eyes, because sometimes if you're looking at the same drawing from one position, then you get used to seeing the deformities. So I sometimes flip the canvas and I see mistakes, and I will happily change those and fix those down the line. So I become aware of them. In this case, I am more or less focused on just getting the colors down, and this is where you should spend as long as possible. And majority of this piece is mostly blocking in, because this is the important part of the process, because you're looking for color and you're applying the color. If it's not right, make every effort and focus to get it as close as possible. I've started to reduce the opacity on the line work, because sometimes the line work can get in the way of what you're doing, so feel free to push it back. I tend to put it down to like 50% or maybe 25%. So applying color over color here. If I'm not satisfied with something, I will just keep going over that area with another color, and just keep going until I'm overly satisfied with what I'm looking at. And then I'll move on to the next area. If there's something I cannot resolve, then I will go somewhere else and I'll come back to that area later. Because it's never good to just focus on one particular area. It's good to look at the overall picture. So I'm spending a lot of time over the face, and this is because it's the points of interest. And anywhere else on the body would be seen as a secondary area to focus on. So the body itself, the Lion Cub's body itself is, even though it's important, but the face is where I want to keep the attention on. So I'm applying bits of color on the body, but not as much. The face is getting more attention than anything, because I want to make sure that it looks almost like a reference. the values work for it. And I still use the 50% technique, which I've mentioned before in my last video, which is basically grabbing a color, set your brush to 50%, make the stroke, eyedrop that new stroke, then set your opacity back to 100% on the brush and continue painting. And this way you're getting the in-between value, in-between color. That's one way of doing it. But the other way, the proper way you should do it really is to look at, just select the color from your palette and identify the color that you're choosing. The only reason I'll do it this way is just to quicken the time up. So there are some short pauses here and there. I directly saved this from a Twitch stream. If you haven't followed me on Twitch, feel free to do so. The links are in the description box. I try to do studies like this every week, so if you're ever around, if you have free time, feel free to drop by and say hi. So I'm getting close to moving on to the rendering phase. So now that I have the blocking stage done, I can start applying some softer values with the blending. And I've mentioned before, it's all about conscious blending, making sure that you're blending areas where it matters and not blending everything. Because the moment you start blending everything, things start looking muddy, and you start to lose that good contrast that the blocking stage has. I found that sometimes when just going straight into blocking, you don't really have to blend much and the picture's almost finished. All the bulk of the work is done. But it's something that requires a thought process when it comes to blending. It's always a thought process. You have to be really careful, because you can easily blend stuff to a point where everything just goes blurred or out of focus, or you lose the edges that made the picture so nice. So I've zoomed back here a bit, and I'm just basically going over areas and just bringing some values in, some colors together where necessary, but still keeping some areas sharp edged to show that contrast, to show that edge of light where one light ends and another begins, or where the shadow starts. Gives it nice definition. So I'm gradually adding bits of detail here and there as well as I go along. So I decided to redo the eyes there again. I wasn't too keen on the first attempt. So I tend to fix a lot of things when I think something isn't right. If I'm not happy with it, I will redo it again. I think that's important. So here, someone on the stream mentioned that the head was slightly tilted, so that was a good spot, and I was going to fix it and I completely forgot, and someone reminded me, so I did spend the time there to fix that. And how I did that was basically keeping a copy of all the layers, and then I made a new copy of those layers and flattened it down, and then moved the head, because on Photoshop you can't move a group of layers, segment from a group of layers, you have to flatten it down. Now that the blending's done, I've gone onto the background, just sprucing that up, because the background needs just as much attention as the lion cub, and obviously the log in front of us is in the foreground, so that needs to be addressed here. There is some slowdown here because I forgot to resume the recording of this speed painting, so I had to do some slight editing to bring some footage from Twitch back into this video. So I'm looking at the shapes of the plants, I'm looking at how the colours affect those and cutting those shapes out, thinking abstract along the way. Sort of like keeping it simple, keep it thinking in shape, that's what matters. Don't worry about detail. If you think in shape and think in abstract, then painting becomes a lot easier and it doesn't need to be complex. Because the shapes will tell the eye what's going on without needing to go into detail. So I'm coming near to the end of this speed painting and I'm just doing all the details. This is where the last 10% really matters. And this is where you can go crazy and we can have a lot of fun doing things like this, but don't spend too long doing details. That's what's important. Don't spend too long. Just spruce things up. So I'm going to end my commentary here. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. I'll get back to you. But yeah, thanks for watching guys and enjoy the rest of this video. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe to my channel for more updates. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more weekly video updates. See you soon.